Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, July 9th. It is just past 10 a.m. and we are going live, so stay tuned. What is up, everybody? It's Greg Corbett with the AZ Lifestyle Group right here in Phoenix, Arizona. If this is your first time to this channel and you're looking to find out everything you need to know about what it's like living in and or moving to the Phoenix area, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you can be notified whenever we post a new video. Our goal is to help people from all over when it comes to finding the best places and neighborhoods to live here, and we absolutely love it. So if you're even considering making a move here and you have any questions whatsoever, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email. However you want to get a hold of us, we got your back when it comes to moving to the Phoenix Metro. All right, so let me go ahead and we'll jump into it. Let me bring in my good friend and partner, Rudy Lopez with Prime Lending. Good morning, Rudy. How are you, man?
Good morning, Greg. Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're it's getting warm and well, I mean it's been warm since June, but now we're getting even warmer. So yeah, we're getting ready. I see these 116 temperatures coming this weekend for Saturday and Sunday. It looks awesome. So yeah, should be good times.
Yeah, I don't think I'm still quite used to the 110 plus weather yet. You know, I'm still relatively new here, loving it, but that 110 plus is still is still taking a little bit of time. I don't know how long it'll be for me to get used to it, but we're fighting a good fight right now.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever do get used to it 100%. You just kind of take the positives when you can. You do everything early in the morning, get up, try to stay out of the direct sun, and hit the pool when you can.
Yeah, and you know what? Another awesome thing about living here, when the temperature does get to 115 degrees, we've got a little town about 2.5 hours north of us called Flagstaff, which, you know, this past 4th of July weekend, my family and we've got the little kids, so we stayed at home and we didn't really go out too much. So we were in the AC most of the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of my coworkers went to Flagstaff, and I think the temperature, the high there was like 85 degrees, and it was like around 110 to 111 here. So you even had to wear a light coat at night because it actually got a little chilly, which I don't even know where my coat is at home. But but that's one of the awesome things of living here too, that if you do want to get away for the weekend or even just make a quick trip up north, 2.5 hours up to Flagstaff and get away from the heat, you have that possibility. You have the ability to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good spots to head up to, and a lot of people did it last weekend. You know, my family and I went up to Sedona. Sedona is not as high elevation. It's still a couple hours away, but it's not as high of an elevation. So you still get up in the mid 90s during the high, but the nights cool down really nicely. So it's much better at night up there, and obviously the views are amazing all around. And it was busy. We just stayed in Airbnb, still tried to take our precautions. Everybody's wearing masks up there, you know, in the stores and that type of thing. But, you know, the main street was busy. Obviously, all the trails and stuff were fairly busy, but still people were doing the best they can at social distancing. So it's packed. People are trying to enjoy themselves as much as they can while keeping COVID in mind. I know for everybody who's wondering, obviously Arizona is a hot spot right now, and there's still record numbers going on, but we're doing the best we can to survive and stay healthy. And I know, thankfully, you know, between the two of us, our families are doing good. I know you know of a couple people. I still haven't seen anybody on my end, but I know the numbers are crazy right now.
Yeah, you know, and again, we're taking the precautions because of our little kids, that we're staying at home 99% of the time. The few folks that I do know that did contract it, a few of them were just one-offs too. They were safe the majority of the time, and then they decided to go out at one particular event where there were more than 10, 20 people and contracted it. One person in particular, she actually traveled. She actually got on a plane and traveled to another state. So maybe that's how she contracted it. I don't know.
It's so hard to figure out. Yeah,
it's so hard. I read an article that the title of the article said half of the people that have caught COVID don't even know where they got it. And I'm actually under the impression that it's probably higher than half of the people that
For
have
sure.
no clue where they contracted it. So just be safe. I mean,
I
this
mean,
is a weird time.
unless you absolutely go nowhere at any time, and then you once go somewhere, like it's going to be really,
Right.
really difficult to really track it down. But for anybody, I mean, we bring this up because obviously for those of you who are looking to move here and you're concerned about that, whether you're wanting to make a trip to kind of check out some of the neighborhoods and what's going on, and you're just concerned about being here, or just concerned about the general aspects of what's going on altogether, you know, there's still a ton of activity. So we know a lot of you are still looking to move out here, and we are taking all the precautions we can. We're trying to help with whether it's doing video tours, going out and kind of scoping things out for you, doing all the legwork for you so you're not having to make as many trips out here. Whatever we need to do to help out with that, we will do. So we understand it's a concern, which it's a valid concern, and we're doing our best here to manage everything, and hopefully we start seeing some positive signs. But, you know, let us help you out however we can on that.
Yeah, my best advice is to use technology and your local experts to help guide you throughout this crazy time, because really there's no definite end in sight as far as anyone is being told. So
Yep.
if you personally have a plan or a timeline that you must meet, or that you're trying to meet to move here, then yeah, you know, call Greg. You know, he's a local expert. Use the technology, the virtual showings. You can even put an offer. There's so many ways to still make the move while taking the precautions that are necessary. So yeah, that's what we're here for. Got to make sure that you guys are safe and that you guys are still able to accomplish your goals of moving here if that's something that you're looking to do.
Yeah, when you're watching this, you know, give us a comment, ask a question. If you're not ready to pick up the phone, or send a text or shoot an email, you know, make a comment and reach out to us. We're getting a lot of comments on these videos for that reason, where it's like, hey, you know, you just want a quick question answered, you just need some information, we're here for you on that. So make sure to ask us anything at any time. We'll do the best that we can to guide you. So let's go talk about some other topics, just because we get a lot of questions. There's a ton of things going on right now. I know you have had a couple people, and I think you went through this on your own when you were moving here, as far as trying to figure out neighborhoods. I know. Let's get into HOAs first, because I know a lot of people maybe don't have as many HOAs as we do here in Arizona when they're coming from other states. So I know from your perspective, you had some questions and you're hearing about it too. What are things that you typically hear when it comes to HOAs, Rudy?
Yeah, so when we moved from Texas, obviously the condos, townhomes, subdivisions that are for new construction, those types of places, you obviously can anticipate an HOA to be in place. One thing that my wife and I discovered, that a lot of neighborhoods here that look like just plain old neighborhoods that have been around for a very long time, some have HOAs. And
Yep.
it's a great thing to have, or, you know, depending on what side of the fence you are. Just be very mindful of that. It just so happens that the house that we bought here in Scottsdale is not in an HOA, and unbeknownst to us, we just put an offer. We love the house, love the
Yep.
neighborhood, and we had no clue that there was an HOA. But the neighborhood next to us, that looks almost identical to our neighborhood, does have an HOA.
Yeah.
So you know, it's just something to keep in mind for a few reasons. Obviously, an HOA, you know, there's a lot of things that an HOA will do for you. You know, most of the time they'll take care of common areas, take care of your landscaping. Sometimes water, for example, could possibly be included in your monthly HOA.
Yep.
There's also a lot of rules that are in place in our particular neighborhood. In our cul-de-sac, there's one house in our cul-de-sac that is used for Airbnb,
Yep.
which if it was in an HOA, possibly that wouldn't be available to
Right,
that particular owner. So just things to keep in mind when it comes to buying a house, especially from out of state, to make sure that when you call Greg and you start looking at different neighborhoods, keep that in mind, because it might not be as obvious as you're buying a condo, you're buying a townhome, you know, those types of things. You just really have to do due diligence when it comes to an HOA. Again, what rules and regulations that particular HOA does have if you are interested in putting an offer in that house.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, like, the reason we have all these HOAs is that we just have all these brand new developments. And so when builders come in and they're doing these master plan communities and just big communities in general, That's where you're going to find these HOAs, and that's the majority of these new build communities that are coming up in all the areas across the valley. So if you're in older areas of town, and like I'm in Central Phoenix, we don't have a ton of HOAs here in Central Phoenix with some of the homes that were built in the 50s and 60s and probably 70s. Same thing with most of what's going on in Scottsdale. You have homes that were probably built in the 70s and 80s. So you may not see HOAs in a lot of those communities over there, but they're there, to protect the home values. And a lot of these communities have these community parks or pools, amenities, and so it's there to add value to people who want to live there. But it does come with a monthly cost most of the time, and it also does come with rules that a lot of people just don't like. So there are good and bad, positives and negatives on it. So it's just trying to figure out what's best for you. We know a lot of people would rather stay away from them. Totally understand, but they're not all bad, and there are some positives with it. Rudy, we have a question that came in, and so let's go to, is it Yvez? And thank you, Yvez, for reaching out to us a couple weeks ago. We appreciate it. How long does it take to start and close on buying a house? And that's a great question, and it's really different for everybody. And I apologize if I'm not saying your name right, Yvez. It could be Yvez too, but it is different for everybody. You can potentially start. We recommend probably getting the process started a little earlier, just so you can kind of see what's going on in the market. Start looking at homes, looking at what's available, trying to get an idea of what's out there. It depends on whether you've nailed down kind of the area you want, and then after that, like once you've chosen an area and you kind of have a general idea on what house you're looking for, once you find that right house. I mean, between start and finish, you can get done within 30 to 45 days. We're probably leaning a little bit longer right now just because of all the COVID stuff, but you can move pretty quickly. So if you have any specific questions on what takes the time, let us know. But we can move pretty quickly once you find that right house, but get started early as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, Greg. The process of buying a house has multiple steps. So there's obviously the preliminary where you want to ensure how much you qualify for, maybe the areas, make any roadblocks that could potentially be in place with credit, possibly your down payment. Maybe you need to sell your current home. All that stuff is going to take obviously longer than a few weeks, possibly several months to make sure that it's all buttoned down. Once that's taken care of, and once you find a house, you have your money, the credit is fine, everything is great. From the moment you put an offer and it's accepted to the time that you're actually handed the keys to that home, it's about 30 days. Yep. And, sometimes we can go a little bit faster. Sometimes the sellers might not be ready to close in 30 days because they're buying another house and they need to close in 40 days. So, or maybe they need to close in 25 days. But a good rule of thumb, if all the preliminary due diligence has been done and you're just talking about, here's my offer, when am I getting the keys? I think 30 days is a pretty good rule of thumb for you to have in place, because there's a lot of moving parts that go into that. And just a lot of stuff that sometimes is out of our control. But I think if you have that in place with 30 days, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and so if you kind of go through the timeline, like once you put an offer in on a property, you've got the time of having the seller to respond, and you may go back and forth a little bit with the seller on that. The offer gets accepted, you deposit your earnest money, you start an inspection period, which primarily is 10 days. Obviously, that's all negotiable, but in our contract, the standard is a 10-day inspection period. So you have a home inspector come out. Depending on the property, you might want to order your appraisal right away. If you're doing anything with a loan, so you get your appraisal ordered after everything checks out. If you're happy with everything, you're good. If you have any thing that you want to ask the seller to correct, you can go down that path and get that done. And then the rest of it is all making sure that the loan process is all good to go, and just kind of checking all the boxes, dotting your I's and crossing T's, and being ready to go before doing your final walkthrough. And so there's a lot of moving parts, but that's why we're here to guide you.
Yeah, we make it as easy as possible too, and that's where doing the due diligence up front so that everyone's on the same page and that these timelines are well known can really help with the stress level so much right now, especially with all the craziness going on. Because before COVID, you could close in 15 to 21 days, and that wasn't out of the ordinary. But now with COVID, you should expect about 30 days.
Yep. And we've got a follow-up question from Yves. What is the minimum down payment for a house?
I'll let you take that on. So you can start with as little as 3% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, you can start with as little as 3% down. Now, one thing also to keep in mind is that when you're buying a house, it's not just your down payment. One common mistake that first-time home buyers make is that they think, okay, I'm buying a $200,000 house. 3% of that is $6,000. Great. I've got $6,000. Let's move forward. There's also closing costs. There's taxes. There's homeowners insurance. There's appraisal, third-party fees, which in Arizona can be about $5,000 approximately. So as far as just down payment is concerned, 3% is as low as you can go. There's some requirements to get to that 3%. And then if you don't meet those requirements, then you can go FHA, which is 3.5, or conventional, which is slightly above that at 5%.
And you can potentially ask the seller to contribute towards your closing costs if you need more cash on hand. So there is a way to potentially get the seller to contribute. Just keep in mind that we are in a seller's market currently. So if you're in a situation where you have a hot property and you're up against other buyers, you want to make it as clean as possible. So that might not be as easy, but you could potentially, if we can get it to appraise, we could potentially bump your offer price up to have them go ahead and pay for your closing costs, and then we'll get it to appraise so that you're covered on that. I know it is helpful to a lot of people. So again, everybody's going to be case by case, and it really depends on the house, how many other buyers you might be up against in order to make this stuff happen.
Yeah, so if it's a house listed on the market for $300,000 and you need $5,000, let's just say, then you can offer $305,000. The sellers give you $5,000, and we're back to that $300,000 initial price point. And so yeah, we actually have done that quite a few. Right now, it's actually about half and half. Half the offers we're successful on. The other half, the sellers aren't quite, because there may be multiple offers. But the good news right now is that it is a seller's market. However, some of these sellers, when they have a qualified buyer that's serious, that's ready to close in 30 days, that is no nonsense. I talk to the listing agent. I let the listing agent know that we're ready to close. All the preliminary due diligence has been done. That's why working with a professional is so important, because if all of these steps have been done and the sellers and the listing agent feel comfortable that you as a buyer are a serious, qualified buyer, they're more than likely going to be more flexible with the seller concessions that you're asking for. So that's something to also keep in mind.
Yeah, I think you bring up a huge point, because that conversation that not only that we have as an agent contacting the other agent to explain the situation, but also the conversation that probably doesn't happen in most deals, where you have your lender call up, in this case Rudy calling the listing agent and giving them all of the whole case on why it would be a good idea to select this deal. That's huge, and there's not that many people that do that. So and then you've got to have somebody who knows how to explain the situation properly and really know how to make them comfortable with saying, hey, I've done all the steps to make sure that we've got a very qualified buyer and they're ready to go. So it's a huge part of the process, and can help. It can mean the difference if you get the house or not. So it's a really big deal.
Yeah, we're in an emotional business, and no matter how much black and white numbers are in front of us, there's still a small or a large part of emotion that takes part in the decision making here. So 100%. On both the buyers and the seller side. So the more comfortable the listing agent is with us as a team, the more comfortable they're going to make the sellers feel to accept your offer. And so it's a team effort, 100% team effort.
Yep. And then another follow-up from Yves. Is it okay to put more than the required amount down? Which this is an easy one. I'll let you take it as well, Rudy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that also helps if you're putting more money down, that helps with with your monthly payment. That helps with the sellers also feeling comfortable. Well, hey, this person's putting more than this person down. That means that this person's more quality. There's so much, but yes, in a nutshell, yes, it's perfectly fine. And there's different options that we can discuss. If we go with 5%, we go with 10%. We could look at all the different options for you to make sure it's not only a good short-term decision, but a good long-term decision as well.
Yeah, Yves, it definitely strengthens your offer. When you can put more money down, it does look better, and then potentially if you got up to the 20% mark that you can put down, obviously that's huge because then you can avoid paying mortgage insurance, which is just an extra. It's like paying HOA fees. Sometimes it's just a big chunk out of your pocket that you didn't want to pay. Sometimes it's worth paying to go ahead and lock yourself into a home. I know I've been in that situation multiple times where you just want to get into it, so you're going to deal with the mortgage insurance up front, because if you lock in now, your home price, over the next 1 to 2 years will increase, should increase, obviously markets depending, but it will help you in that realm just to lock something in. So if you can avoid it, great. If you need to take on mortgage insurance, it's definitely not a horrible thing, but when you're increasing your down payment, most of the time it's going to be very good for you.
And the down payment's also dependent on what's the use of the home. If it's a primary residence, that's where you can go the 3 to 5%. If it's an investment home, the down payment requirement increases. If you're going to buy the house as a second home, for example, you live in Phoenix, you want to buy a house in Flagstaff, and it's a second home that you're going to use as a vacation home. That down payment minimum is 10%. Investment, if you're going to buy it as a rental, then it's a 15% minimum. So there's a lot of different down payment requirements. A lot of factors.
Well, and the one thing I do want to bring up, because I have a lot of people I know in this situation where they're selling a house and they've got a good amount of equity and they're coming here to buy. And they're like, well, why don't I just take all my equity and put it into the next house? You can do that. It's not a bad, but if you have like 50% down, in my mind, like, great, you lower your payment, but interest rates are so low right now that it might be best just to kind of keep some cash on hand and, put their 20% down so you're not paying mortgage insurance, and then maybe to keep the rest in your bank account for a rainy day, because, with the mortgage rates where they're at right now, you might as well have cheap money.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of a holistic view. It's not just I'm buying this house, what's my payment? It's I'm buying this house, how much am I comfortable putting down? What's my monthly payment going to be if I put this amount of money that I'm comfortable with? Am I also comfortable with the monthly payment? But also, am I saving enough money, or am I putting in enough money aside for 6 months of living expenses in case COVID happens, or in case something crazy happens? Do I have money set aside in savings? Am I putting money into a retirement account? It's a lot of different parts that are not just how much am I putting down and what is my monthly payment. Whenever I talk to first time or even investors that have bought multiple houses, we discuss that. How much do you have aside? What's your overall financial picture look like as it relates to buying this house, for not only this particular house, but for your future? Yeah.
And then let's go back to Yves here real quick. Number one, thank you so much. And thank you, Yves, for reaching out. We appreciate it. Do I have the option to pay my mortgage payment ahead of time, like paying for the next 6 months to come? And I'll let you take it. I'm not 100% sure on that, because typically if you pay ahead, it just goes right to your principal. I don't know if there are any mortgage companies that'll just say, hey, I'll pay it for 6 months, and they actually count it for your payment. Have you heard of that at all, Rudy?
No, what most people do, if they want to make a huge principal reduction payment, they can put, $10,000-$20,000 payment, and it keeps your payment stays the same. Your monthly payment stays the same. What happens
you couldn't basically, because this is what I'm getting from Yves, I'm guessing, is she would like to pay 6 months in advance so she doesn't have to worry about it for the next 6 months. That's what I'm guessing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Yves. But so that's what I'm taking from that. I don't know if, unless you probably just have to schedule like auto payment from your checking account to make sure it just posts every month. But I believe all the mortgage companies want you to pay each month.
Yeah, I haven't had anybody prepay for multiple months.
Yep.
You know, lots of mortgage companies and servicers are different. What I would recommend is if you have that money set aside, just have it automatically deducted from your account every single month.
Yep.
So that those funds aren't commingled with some other funds that you might use that can get in the way of you making your mortgage payments.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good. And Yves, thank you again, and keep asking questions. I know, Rudy, there was one other thing that you had mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about real quick, so we might as well get into it. Do you have time?
I do. Yeah, okay. I do have a few minutes.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is another thing that my wife and I discovered when we were moving from Texas to Arizona is here in Scottsdale, and I haven't done a loan for any of these types of properties yet. It was just something that we discovered while we were in Texas looking online, is that some of the neighborhoods here are on a land lease. So you do not own the land. You're actually paying a monthly fee to live in this house, and I think the name of the neighborhood is Briar West, I believe, just down
There's
the road.
There's a few in Scottsdale, yeah.
Yeah, so when these houses are in great locations, and
they look like steals. Yeah.
They do.
People are like, that looks amazing. How do I get it? Like, yeah, it does look amazing.
Yeah, the price for that particular area is so much lower than the houses just half a mile to the northwest east of it. So,
and when you talk about a land lease, let's let people know like this. So I'll give you kind of an example. So you'll find these amazing properties in Scottsdale that they're listed for $300,000 and they look amazing, and you're like, well, I'll buy that yesterday. And then you look, and you see this land lease, and it's not something you're going to see like in Zillow or a lot of the other websites that you're just not going to see it. So, what they charge is like $600 a month. It's like usually they have an HOA of about $400 a month, and then they have a land lease of $600 a month. So you're paying an extra $1,000 a month to live in this community in order to buy this property at that low price point. So. For some people, maybe it makes sense. Most of the time, people are like, no, I'm not going to pay a land lease on land that I don't own, because the equity on these properties does not grow like the equity if you were to buy a piece of land with a house already built on it. So, for the right person, it does make sense. But if you're looking and you're seeing these crazy deals that pop up online, and honestly, I don't know of anywhere else outside of Scottsdale that has them. But if you are looking in Scottsdale and you see a crazy deal, chances are likely it's because it's got a land lease.
Yes, they are, and we found that out. We saw a couple houses that were on land leases that the prices were just so much lower than all the other houses in the area, and
you're like, what are we missing?
Yeah, they're on land leases.
So no, it's a good thing to bring up, and hopefully for anybody who's looking in Scottsdale and watching this, that'll help. But we know people are looking on Zillow all the time, and I get it. I mean, Zillow's a big platform, and there's a lot of reasons to look at, especially when you're coming from out of state and you're not ready to connect with anybody yet. It's usually the easiest way to kind of start shopping around, but. If you're seeing this and you're like, hey, I use Zillow all the time and I want a better source, like reach out to us, because we'll set you up on something that's directly from the MLS. The other thing about Zillow that can be challenging is they're not going to show you stuff that's under contract accepting backups, which typically means that you're not going to have any availability towards many. That all those will show up as active on Zillow, and so you're going to see a bunch of houses showing active, and you're like, hey, how is this a seller's market? There's tons of houses on the market in the Arizona, and there's all these deals, and then you talk to us and you're like, yeah, that went under contract several weeks ago, and so did the other 10 properties you sent me. So just be aware of that. It's a little crazy, and I know it's disappointing when we share that with people, but it's crazy times. Our inventory is so low right now, and that's why it's a seller's market. You would think because of COVID that it's like, hey, buyers like, I can score a deal right now because, you know, hey, who knows what the market's going to be like in 6 months? The seller should be wanting to move, which I get that mindset as well. I'm working with several people that were like, hey, you know, who knows what's going to happen? We want to buy smart. So I get that perspective. But right now, there's more buyers than there are properties.
Yeah, even before COVID, this was a popular hotspot for a lot of people to move to.
Yep.
And then now with COVID, you've got more folks that are now able to work remotely, that have new opportunities that they probably didn't have before COVID. So there's even more influx of people that are now exploring the idea of moving here.
Yep.
And, it just hasn't really stopped. It slowed down very, very briefly when it all started because of all the uncertainty. But now that now that we know kind of what's going on, and yes, it's still scary times, the buyers are coming out, and there's still very low inventory here. So it's just a great place to live.
Yeah. There are, with all the challenges we have, I mean, you still wake up in the morning. It's like, it's so nice to be here. There's so many reasons to love it, and we understand why people are coming from all over the place. So, well. Let's wrap it up. I think we covered a lot of stuff. Thank you, Yves, for joining us today and kind of popping in with a few questions. Always nice to have that. Like, we're such a new channel, and to have people follow us and ask us questions is awesome, and we appreciate it greatly. So please reach out anytime, and if you ever want to jump on a Zoom call with us directly, we're here for you, and that goes for everybody. So again, thank you guys for watching, whether you're watching right now live or if you watch this later on. We appreciate it. Reach out to us anytime, and we will catch you next week when we go live. Thanks, everybody.